Okay, wonderful. So let's maybe start with your age and your years of experience in transpersonal coaching or working with spiritual intelligence.
I'm 55 and I started at age 12, so 43 years now.
Wow, okay. And if I say spiritual intelligence, how would you define that term in maybe a couple of sentences?
Yeah, it's the tacit awareness of one's nature and one's relationship with nature, with existence, not from a theoretical or a philosophical or dogmatic space, but really from a direct experience of the nature of truth itself. And so to me, that's the essence of it.
Okay. And why do you think that that is particularly important for business leaders today, if you think so at all?
Well, most business leaders are moved and are running on the imprints of society, their parental imprints, societal imprints, success imprints, all that's in there in the socio dynamic, right? Right from our homes, right to the macro. And so much of their motives and intentions aren't truly actually sourced in their nature. They're sourced in something, someone else's ideas, someone else's intentions, someone else's motives, or a zeitgeist motive that's going on at the same time. And no matter how much success you gain in the outside world, financial world, kudos, recognition, authority, there's no fulfillment. There's no fulfillment. And so it may seem like there's a temporary fulfillment, when one attains some type of bells and whistles or accolades or financial win or score, but there's no lasting, abiding, deep peace of being. There's no sense of, I am one with the great harmonious flow of existence. It tends to be, I'm trying to win, conquer, fight, crush it, all these terms. So when we discover our true nature and then what we are made of, what our essence is, who we are, transcendent of any teaching, teachers, through direct experience again, and then what happens is then our own navigation comes on boards. Our own soul's navigation comes on board. And now there's nothing more powerful than the soul's navigation. It's the purest direct path to fulfillment. And so I think it's essential in the new era we're in, post-COVID or tail end of COVID at least. The whole circumstances brought us all more inward, and especially our paradigms of what success is. And I think that's really, really vital right now to have a deep look at what brings us joy, fulfillment, success, and be open to have a new version of that that's omni-win, that serves the greater good as well as our own individual needs.
And so do the leaders who come to work with you already have that or have discovered that awareness for themselves, or what would have to happen in a leader's, let's say, perspective in order to even be open to this kind of shift? Because from my experience of working with leaders, a lot of them are still very much in that, so to say, old paradigm of, we're going to make money, and yes, it would be great if we can also be a little bit sustainable and, things like that. Yes. But it's not so present yet. So have you identified like a pattern in the clients that come to you?
It's either success or failure. One or the other. You can reach the heights of some type of success. You feel high, you feel positive. You've got the accolades. Perhaps you've done that a few rounds of success in some way. So there's a natural confidence and knowingness that you can create what you want, when you want, how you want. And the masculine energetic within us is driven always to more and more greater goals, to break free from, so yesterday's successes is today's limitations. And just that's the nature of the masculine drive. Unfortunately, many people with feminine essences have picked that up because that's been the nature of the imprint that's been going on for a long time, the preponderance of it, at least on the surface. But the key I found is that when people are at a place where they're fulfilled, some hierarchy of needs, whatever the lower chakras of success, sex, power, and money, when there's a certain modicum of, okay, And there's a fulfillment which then starts to spark the evolutionary life force. There's an inherent, the yogis call it kundalini, but to me it's an evolutionary life force. It's always wanting to evolve you if you allow yourself to come in a union with it. And if not, you're always going to seek distraction or more wins, more kills, another thing, something that is temporary or something that'll elicit our ego basically, and take us off on another ride, 1, 2, 5, 10 years, until a failure happens, something bad enough, strong enough, deep enough, divorce, illness, sickness, almost losing it. That's what happened to me. I almost lost my family from overworking, serving the world, becoming a rock star, teaching all over the world. And then, I'm starving my own family, like totally incongruence, right? So the unhappiness of success and the unhappiness of failures always tends to elicit this feeling of, is there more? Is there deeper to life than this? And that's my confront with the business leaders I'm working at. If they don't have that feeling, they're not ready yet. They still need to make their killing, if you will, make a killing. But when some of them are feeling that, and they need to be called out on it, and that they need to be called out saying, listen, yes, your drive for success, but do know that that is most likely related to your desire to fulfill your dad or your mom's approval or your family's approval. So I have the sense I can read people. And so especially leaders, for me, it's very obvious what part of them is run by their soul, what part is run by the mind. And to me, it has to be soul and mind harmony. The soul being the navigation, the mind being the servant. And so I tell the leaders, hurry up and get successful quickly until you realize it doesn't mean what you think it means, or fail deep enough until you come to the humbleness that you're ready for what your soul is truly yearning for. And just that confront is enough to get the gears going.
So we were speaking about the mind and the soul and fostering integration between the two. So when we say spiritual intelligence, it probably is more that soul intelligence. How do you help business leaders do that?
So first of all, when I mean soul, like it could mean heart, could be inner being, inner tuition, call them many things. To me, the mind is the executioner, that executes, organizes. Many of us have these ideas. Don't need to dive into that so much. One thing I've come to recognize is that if we make decisions, and this is well known in the spiritual dimension, right, we talked how do we integrate, is that don't listen to the mind, feel the soul, follow the soul's path. But if you did that, you wouldn't run businesses. Businesses need a lot of micro absorption. They need to have overviews, they need to have structures, they need all the things that make a successful business, which is huge amount of mind. The mind can have yes, 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 but if the soul is no, we're taught in spirituality, don't go down that route, pull away, meditate, find some other way. And then we have the spiritualists who say, just follow the soul, don't listen to the mind. We have the rationalists say, follow the mind, don't listen to the soul. The soul, that's just your feelings and emotions. We need to stay very clear and get the job done. Both have strengths and weaknesses. If you follow the mind, you'll create an empire of the mind, and there'll be a deep soulful misalignment. You won't feel happy at the end of the creation. If it's just the creation is very soulful, it'll tend to fall apart because it doesn't have the structure, the clarity, the legs that proper business clarity can bring to structures, organizations, and such, right? Yeah. So for me, it's always about soul and mind unity. Soul and mind unity, and which is more rare. It happens, soul and mind come together. The mind can say no and the soul says no. When you go to a restaurant or something and it doesn't feel right, or the bad service, we know immediately to the bad things, soul and mind come in immediate harmony. But to find and be conscious of, where is my soul and mind coming into a yes? it's usually far less than what we're doing. So I
Mm.
train the leaders I work with to attune to the feeling of comfort in their chest, their solar plexus, their belly, their soul, their innermost, and that the language of the soul is through comfort and discomfort, warmness of being, relaxation and expansion and surrenderedness of being tends to be the feeling that comes when the soul is in harmony with the direction. That's your door, your path. And then the mind may need some, well, I need more facts on this. Let me research. The soul says, yes, let me look into the numbers. Let me look at the details. Okay, no, it's not working out on a numbers level. So soul and mind, I would say no. One's yes, one no. Now, if my soul, that's interesting, let me open to that. Good. That might bring my awareness into the field of investigating it. Then I'll do it with the mind, with proper analytics, whatever needs to be done, assessments, due diligences. And then when you do those, if they're a yes and the soul is still a yes, then I recommend moving forward. When we do that, it's like miracles. The universe opens up, things start moving towards you. Willpower goes down by about 75%, and manifestation comes on like boom. It seems miraculous and uncanny, but we've seen this in multiple companies going 10x by applying this in the leadership, just in the leadership teams. So
yeah, wow. It reminds me a little bit of what Roberto Assagioli wrote about with the will also, that there's just this force that naturally comes out of you and you don't need the willpower from the mind, but it comes more effortless and you just do the things and maybe work crazy hours, but it feels effortless because maybe of this mind and soul alignment.
that's the result. That state of being is the result of soul and mind unity.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the outcropping, it's the flowering of that.
Yeah. So if I would put it in very lay terms, would it be to help business leaders to basically become more mindful of sensory perceptions, like an opening, as you said, in the chest, and just more like an embodied component rather than being so much in the head, to more feel into the physical form?
Yes, well put. Exactly.
Okay.
And that's part of the, I have a particular framework, a path I take them through. And I take them through the path of going from egoic power to awakened or enlightened power, transcendent power. And I represent that by the circle. You can see behind me here, the circle. And to me, that represents egoic aim. The circle could be a bullseye, our goal, our target, our mission, all of that good stuff, right? That's taught in so many ways. What I like to do, instead of source, what is our mission? Mikam, I get our teams together and we do dyads. Feel what our mission is and say something about it. Feel what our mission is not and say something about it. When we go back and forth in this inquiry, back and forth, the superficial layers of mind start to dissolve. No one does that. Most people take the first skim, the first thing that's our mission, or they're using their mind. We go back until the mind dissolves, until you're in the state of being, where the actual purpose and mission arises, like you, as you earlier said, from within. Then you can put the articulation of what that means. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, Paul Riley, software company, brilliant software company. I had to meet with them for 2 days, these engineers, and ask them, what does it do? Tell me again. They're all geniuses, AI, machine learning, brilliant fellows. And I'm trying to figure it out. And I put my hat on it as a 10-year-old. I said, okay, let me go in as a 10-year-old. Please explain it to me. After 2 days, I went, you mean to tell me this detects when stuff's breaking down in advance? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly. I'm like, well, why did you tell me in the first place? You're using all this techno jargon, and I get it, because that's their dimension of mastery. That's the lingo in that sphere. But that was going on for 10 years in this company. When we crafted the mission, which is creating a world that doesn't break down.
Mm.
Basically detects when nuts and bolts, any mechanical engineering is going to break down months, years in advance, fix this bolt, this is weak here. And now it's booming in so many industries. This software is entered and saving many lives, and saving and how many missions that are powerful don't make it past the finish line because they stated only strategy. They didn't listen to the pulse of what wants to happen.
Mm.
And that's, I think, a very powerful training that us as business leaders can cultivate, is learning how to tune into both and to gain the wisdom of all navigation capacities of our being, not just one limited area.
Mm. Yeah. I personally see spiritual intelligence also like as a synergy intelligence between IQ and EQ that transcends and includes the two. Like it's beyond them, but you feel into what feels right to do. You think about what would be right to do, but it's like it's more expansive than that, right? So yeah, really tapping into that. And actually listening to you speaking about an IT company, I would be curious, like, what brings especially ITlers like into this more spiritual space? Because yeah, again, from my own experience, these are the hardest ones to crack.
The CEO has shared his public story in writing and public, so I'm not sharing anything that's private.
Okay.
There's just working 7 days a week, trying to, take a startup, a 10-year, 11-year startup, fighting every month for getting more funding and this, that gets harrowing for years, let alone 1, 2, 3 years. It tears down, breaks down. It's exhausting. And then the families get affected, relationships, the sexuality, the intimacy, the closeness. It's like another partner that you have. And then, relationships with children, if people have them, they get, I went through that, I spent way too much time on the road and gained outer success, but I was losing that. And so I think what's important is as we grow, to me, spiritual intelligence goes through stages: me, we, and the all. So you might be elevating consciously within yourself, but if you're in a company which is all about me, only about profit centers, and it has no deeper meaning, or a meaning that has some positivity in some way to the greater good rather than an extracting business, it doesn't matter how spiritually evolved you are, how much meditation you do, you're in an incongruent place with your sadhana, with your soul's journey. And so your spirituality means shit if you're doing meditation and you're in a company that's destroying the planet or people. So part of that warriorship within of spiritual intelligence is to follow the voice of spirit. Non-intelligent people don't follow spirit. Intelligent people follow spirit. Why? Because they recognize that that is the path of least resistance and maximum impact. It always is. Always, without a doubt. And it's our fear and doubt and disbelief on that takes us the long route. I do jujitsu, and my master in 2 moves can choke me out, might take me 8, 10 moves. You're doing less moves as you elevate in spiritual advancement. And you're not getting the valiant self kudos for the overworking that you do by taking 10 moves. And when you're tapped in spiritually, you're feeling what is the path of least resistance, least ripple creation, and you become like Archimedes consciousness. And now when you're in the intelligence level, the unity level of consciousness, so you go from me, you realize some point in your life, I'm serving me, but it's not fulfilling. And so then you become a win-win. So the old paradigm is win. The new paradigm started coming around, and it's coming on board in the 60s. Win-win continues to flourish around the world. That's great. And now we're just starting to go into win for the all. Omni-win, omni-consideration. And to, as you said, the symbiotic relationship. At that level, you are not thinking about the symbiotic relationship. You are you are feeling it. And it's from the tacit knowingness of your symbiotic relationship with everything. That's how you're steering, guiding, leading your companies, organizations, right down the middle. And they see that because in spiritual, there's no difference. There's not a duality, spirituality and business. That's an illusion. Those are illusions.
I love the analogy that you created with jujitsu, because what I heard from it was it's like when you tap into your intuition also maybe and do less moves, that it actually enhances efficiency, right? Or maybe also effectiveness, like you're doing the right moves and you're probably also doing less moves, which makes it efficient. So
and you're using less energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's an unconscious addiction to struggle in business.
Interesting.
And the masculine within us, struggle is almost given kudos for being noble. And why? For millions of years, we're on battlefields and we're hunters. You know, we're hunting and gathering for who knows how many eons or how long. And so that's deeply, deeply imprinted in us. And so the more we struggle, sometimes we get kudos. Sometimes we get that, wow, look how hard, or we feel we are of somebody. That was one of the biggest things for me to let go of. Because I grew up with an immigrant Indian family from Africa to India to Africa to England to Canada. And then we grew up working 7 days a week in family businesses, restaurants, stores, you name it. And when I started taking one day off, I started feeling guilty. And then years later, when I'll take a weekend off, and I went, oh, and then my family looks at me and like, are you lazy? And I'm like, and now maximum my work basically, every weekend's a 4-day weekend for me. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is when my concentrated focus is. The rest of the other days are spacious for me, very spacious. So I will take business meetings, new things, but these are unique or neat meetings or venture, explore, research, open, meditate. But I do that, and I'm far more potent in 3 days than I would be in 4 or 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah, that definitely hits home.
Like the Bruce Lee punch. I come from Shaolin Kung Fu. That's my roots in martial arts for many years. And you have a 1-inch punch, and in that 1-inch punch, it looks like it's very little movement. And in that 1-inch punch, you can knock a man down 10 feet.
Yeah.
You don't have to go. And so that's, I think, part of the journey that is that happens, with the folks I work with, is they go from mule to magician. Hardworking, back-breaking. Struggle is struggle is effort that's laced with negative emotion. You need effort, but struggle is an addition.
And that is usually also why people come to coaching, right? Because they struggle with something. And I guess that would be one question that I would also have for you. How does transpersonal coaching, might support the development of spiritual intelligence in a better way compared to traditional coaching, if so?
Very well, I believe so from my experience now. So what I do is I use a set of processes and a methodology called accelerated evolution. And in these processes, in these guided experiences, we find where is the struggle. So I will ask, for example, a CEO that I'm mentoring today will say, okay, and I'll say, what's on your plate today? Good, bad, and ugly. What needs to be dealt with? And if there's some tension, stress, struggle, personal, professional, then I'll take them into a guided process which dissolves the charge and brings the experience into unity consciousness. And then they go into what we call pleroma states or non-dual states of consciousness, where you're not the problem is not a problem anymore. It's seen as a creation. It's felt as a nothing, as consequential as fluff walking by, like air, like fluff. Now from that state, you can create and you can make decisions that are based on harmonious, clean follow through. So it's not just transcending and staying in some ethereal, ephemeral reality. It's being grounded in the eternal to make the temporal decisions clean and centered in being. So these processes that I take them through, it automatically happens that they go into these transpersonal states. It's designed that way. And the reason why that over regular coaching, traditional coaching is reframing, asking good pointed questions, getting people to look at things from another viewpoint. It's still working in the mind. With the work I do, which is, as you said, transpersonal coaching, what happens is that we take a problem, but we look at what is the subjective problem of this. Someone could lose, two people could be at the brink of closing their businesses. One person could be like, oh, my sweating, like, how do I keep it together? The next person could be celebrating, thank goodness I need to get out of this, right? Same experience, different subjective experience. So what we do is we go into the subjective experience. So I'll look at what are the areas of contracture. Those are compacted units of oneness. They're not free attention. It's attention of being that's wrapped up in some myopic area of being, and then life force is being added, and we're generating those repeated thought, we're going downhill, spiral downhill. So what I do is I take them right into the heart of their pain, their charge, their fear, their struggle, the stuff that most CEOs or leaders don't want to talk about in person. I take them right to the freaking core of it. We go right there, and you need courage to do this, and people got to have some modicum of courage to be able to, if they're in leadership positions. And when we go there and then we do the work, what happens is the contractor starts to open and flower. It becomes a source of wisdom. What used to be hell becomes a doorway to heaven, truly within being. And then all of a sudden, going through the process is like going through a stairway to heaven, where we recognize whatever was a negative charge has a higher meaning for us. We discover that higher meaning, and then that, when we fulfill that, there's a higher meaning above it, and there's a continuous higher meaning to even the shittiest things in the world, even the most stressful. Their direct route to awakening and consciousness, and that's the warrior's path. Warriors don't shirk from contracture. They face it, they remain open, and they're investigating with openness and humbleness and humility to go, there's what my power lies in there. I might not know. This might make me feel the weakest, most vulnerable I've ever been, but there's a power on the other side of that. So, and this is what I do all day long with business leaders. And what happens is at the end of that tunnel, when they come through, it's like you have a Taoist master in front of you. Someone who's whole and calm and in a state of equanimity and equilibrium. And they wonder, why was I even worried about that? Why did I? And the solution stream and clarity streams. And why it does is because now we're connected to our highest and most symbiotically connected wisdom. We're not coming from fear, which cuts off our sensitivities to what needs to happen.
It reminds me a lot of the analogy from like moving from tunnel awareness to this open, expansive awareness, and then basically, gaining this clarity from the higher realms, I'd say. And then again, bringing it back though. And I think that is the part that a lot of people might not really realize when they think about spirituality. They just think we're going to stay up there, rather than actually like bringing it back and making it applicable to real life, issues that might not be issues then anymore, because we fundamentally change the way, not only how we see it, but how we relate to it emotionally.
Really well put. So in my work, what I do is that once we have that contracted state and we open it up all the way into these higher transcendent states, Then we have a protocol of grounding questions and integration questions, and then practices and self-assignments or assignments we take on to ground that deeper knowingness. So I'm always asking after those highest states, what was good about that for you? What's good about that for others, your family, your team? What's valuable about this experience pragmatically in life? What did you learn from this? And what's one thing that you can do that by doing it, things are going to get smoother, easier, more impactful, more fluid in your life? I like to do that right after people are in these transcendent states, as they're grounding back into being, when their charge is transformed. Now they're in a miracle ready state. Now their mind is like anything can be created, like there's no limitation. And then from that state, you want to actually hone, where do you want to go from now? And that's the importance of integration questions and chosen assignments that come from that state. Like one might realize that I need to make amends with someone in my life or a business partner, or I might need to close something that I've been pushing, controlling too hard. I actually should let it go so something else can really flourish and thrive. But because you had so much attachment over here, you couldn't do that. So both avenues were being diminished. That wisdom only comes when you go to the when you're willing to go to the depth of truth. If you're not, you'll stay in strategy, you'll stay in analytics, you'll stay in the traditional mindsets of business thinking, and we'll get the results of that as well. The results of the transcendent consciousness, is not just a future win, it's a joy on the path. And seeing the miracle unfold as you go in front of it. And there's always the wink that universal mystery is alive in you, rather than your attachment to having to know and control everything. That sucks.
Yeah. Just on what you mentioned before, this is one of my last questions on maybe the factors that positively or negatively impact a leader's development of spiritual intelligence. And from what I heard, there's like willingness that is definitely very important, and being curious, I guess, open-minded to experiencing something different, and thereby also having different results, right? Because if we always do the same old, how do we expect to get different results? And that might also be an argument for people to explore transpersonal coaching if they say, well, I've been stuck with whatever issue I have for a while, and I might have to try different routes. But back to the question, like what other factors might facilitate or negatively impact the development of spiritual intelligence amongst leaders?
That's a great question. Negatively impact is wanting to stay where you're at and not wanting to change. And if you're not wanting and yearning for change, then there's not much you can do except life. Sooner or later, life is evolution. And if you're not evolving, you're dying. And if you don't know, something will die around you or in you, and you're going to recognize it's time to evolve. So that's going to come gently, or it's going to come with a slap or a bite. You might as well take it gently, is what I tell all of them. To pick up the call for your evolution when the puppy is purring and tapping at your feet for attention, rather than when it's a huge bear clawing at you, right? So
Fair.
that's number one. That's number one. Number two is assess truly, what does fulfillment mean to you? Not success. What does fulfillment mean to you? And ask yourself, what does fulfillment mean to you that's not connected to any ideas, mom's ideas, dad's ideas, your people's ideas, your society's ideas, your cultural ideas? What is sourced in you? What is fulfillment for you, and what it isn't? Write it down, chat about it, go into dialogue with it deeply. And that will uncover and start the evolutionary process. Because if there's things that aren't deeply fulfilled and you get in touch with it, and you don't distract it with sex, drugs, booze, alcohol, distraction,
Working.
you just sit with it for a little bit, There's a gold mine there. And if it's not comfortable, that's your evolutionary impulse saying, time to step up and work on being, time to grow. So that's one of the things. What helps is things like this. Listen to entrepreneurs, business leaders. If we look at some of the business giants that we know, they all have some type of deep spiritual connection, whether it's overt or subtle. Steve Jobs, was a meditator and a Buddhist, as an example. He had some wise words of spiritual wisdom, like a Taoist or a Zen master in his last days and last weeks of his life. That's one example. And also read from the examples of people who have failed, because the old saying, I climbed up the success ladder to find out it was leaning against the wrong wall. Why do you want to wait? Why do you want to wait? Life is really short. It's it's precious and it's short. And the other thing is, as us business leaders, we have dharma to do. We've got business leaders can either destroy they've been destroying the planet for a long time, contributing to it, or that we can create utopia and move towards that. What do you want? And if you want to move towards that, you got to recognize that you need to choose to let go of the egoic underpinnings and all the bullshit accolades and unreality you'll get from that world, and choose to find a path that'll take you that. How can I take my business skill, acumen, consciousness, and be of greater good for the whole? That'll lead us into and be willing to follow that path. Read, go online, listen to talks like this, meditate. Don't just read about it. Go to people, meet people, experience people who have a depth of transmission that you go, I'd like some of that. What is that? Follow that, because that'll lead you into the temple of the soul.
So it's really also about the experiential part and not just consuming it. Well, intellectually, I think we can read a lot about spirituality and only somewhat grasp it. For me personally, spirituality is the lived experience of whatever religion you might want to pursue, or if no religion at all, that's fine too. But it's like it's an experience, and I guess that's also what has to come through in the coaching, from what I heard earlier, what you said around really creating transcendent experiences to tap into this deeper layer of will, I guess. True will, yeah, the one with the capital W. Yes. Okay, so maybe my final question, Satyen, we were speaking about more of the business leaders side and what might facilitate or hinder the development of SQ. And now, if you could give 3 tips to a transpersonal coach who facilitates that process, what would that be?
First would be to ask them truly what their heart and soul is yearning for. And keep asking that until they come into resonance. You might have to ask them for 10 minutes. The same, you might say, listen, I'm going to ask you, continue to ask until you drop deeper. What's in your deepest yearning? What's in your soul? What do you really wish to live and experience? They say it. Don't take it. Start say, I'm going to ask you again. And keep until they drop. All the superficial mind falls away, and then you're in a mutual soul resonance. You can feel them dropping in, getting in touch with the truth of what they're here for, what they're willing. So that's number 1. Don't help them get goals that they don't really want, that they think that they want. Help them get to the source of what they're yearning for, and then support them in that. And number 2 is, and I'm going to go to the end piece, and I shared about the integration questions. Have them integrate higher states, transpersonal states, by asking them, what was good about this? How can you live this? What's the way you can bring this truth into your life pragmatically? How can you walk this talk, this experience? Chat with them. Okay, and then let them express it fully so they're able to channel that into down to earthness. And then number 3, hold them accountable to the follow through. Okay, you said you're going to meditate 30 minutes a day starting, this and this. Okay, great. I'm going to be there to support you, to make sure that since you're starting a new habit, you're cultivating it, you feel the depth of it. This came from you. This is the answers from you, not me. You said you're going to meditate 30. Okay, let's keep you assault and help them come into alignment around their choice over and over. Not what you think is best for them. All they have to do is follow what they know. And they'll go all the way home.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll stop the recording here.